I'm James Brierton with a Carolina Weather Group special report. Thanks for joining us on our streaming platforms of Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. It is Sunday, about 5:15 Eastern Time, and Hurricane Irma has made landfall in Florida. It happened at about 3 o'clock, and right now, the eye of that storm, just barely visible here on the satellite imagery, is making its way over Naples. Naples, Florida right now, looking at the eye of that storm. That eye came ashore just about the 3 o'clock hour or so, and when it did, it came ashore with winds of about 130 miles per hour near Marco Island. So right now we are watching the eye of this storm as it makes its way over Naples, Florida, and if you look here at the radar from Tampa Bay, you can actually see it. Just there where it says Naples on the map, you can see that dry slot of air where things are actually eerily quiet in Naples for just a moment here after getting some very intense winds that came through. So we did just get the 5 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center, and I want to go ahead and put that up on the screen for you here and bring you some of the latest information from the National Hurricane Center as of about 5 o'clock. So Hurricane Irma, again, made landfall just a few hours ago in Marco Island, Florida, and is now making its way past Naples. When it came ashore, it had winds of about 100 knots, and if I do my conversion here correctly, about 100 knots is about 115 miles per hour. So we still have a fairly intense hurricane here, the eye moving past Naples, and assuming some decay. It's breaking down a little bit now that it is over land. We've lost just a few miles per hour in our 5 o'clock advisory. The interaction with the Florida Peninsula, along with that strong southwesterly shear, should cause significant weakening, but Irma's large and powerful circulation will likely maintain her hurricane strength here until at least Monday morning at the earliest. Irma should be well inland and weakened down to about a remnant low in the next 72 hours or so, but by the time that happens, we're talking about a circulation that is north of Tallahassee into portions of Georgia or Alabama. The official intensity forecast is looking fairly confident, and let's go ahead and pop up that forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center, just reissued at 5 o'clock or so, and we can see exactly what the longevity of this storm is. We are anticipating that the storm will lose its major hurricane status here in not too long. A major hurricane is one that is a Category 3 or higher, so that means the storm would have to maintain winds of 111 miles per hour or stronger in order to maintain its status as a major hurricane. And matter of fact, as of that 5 o'clock advisory, the best estimates is just below that. 110 miles per hour actually makes Hurricane Irma, as of 5 o'clock Eastern Time, a Category 2 storm. But this is still a very strong hurricane as it now moves northward into Florida at 14 miles per hour, which means not only are we watching for this storm here in Naples, but we're still watching it as it makes its way towards Port Charlotte and Port Tampa to really bring strong rain, strong winds, and still that storm surge threat that we've been talking about is not only going to be a concern along portions of western Florida, but also up into Tallahassee, where the eye of the storm is expected to be by tomorrow afternoon. We have a map from the National Hurricane Center I can actually go and put up on your screen for you, and it actually gives us a good idea of what type of storm surge we can be expecting. So as I zoom in here, and we've shown this a couple times if you've been with us on our live streaming updates here in the Carolina Weather Group, as the storm here is making its way past Naples and eventually again up into Port Charlotte and Fort Myers, all of that area in red, not only the barrier islands, but also the coastal communities within a few blocks or so of any place where we have direct access to the water, whether that be the coast or the inlet, we can expect to see at least 9-foot storm surge. So we're watching for some significant flooding here that will be driven not only by the wind, but also the circulation of this storm is literally just going to have all of this water being pushed up against the shoreline. So we're watching for that also. St. Petersburg and Florida and Tampa here, you can see some of the blues here and yellows, so that's going to be about 3 6-foot storm surge into the bay, and then again as the storm makes her way the next 24 hours or so up towards Tallahassee, probably about 3 to 6 foot storm surge there. They, I think, have walked back the storm surge concern just a little bit, because what has happened here, and this is certainly good news, despite the fact that we still have a very significant hurricane to be talking about, because the storm made landfall here in Naples, the eye is now over land. It is no longer over water. water, which means that we have really decreased the storm's opportunity to strengthen, because now it is no longer being fueled by that warm water. It is actually interacting with land, which is negative for the storm. It is causing some friction, so we will expect to see the storm kind of weakened a little bit here, but we are still talking about a fairly significant hurricane for most of Florida, which is why we still have those hurricane warnings up, and we also have some isolated tornado warnings up. You can see them on the screen here from the Tampa perspective, from the Tampa radar. We have some of those tornado warnings, again, for the Melbourne area into Orlando, caused by the circulation of the storm. And just off to the bottom of that screen, we actually have some high wind warnings down for Fort Myers or so. That's when destructive winds near the eye of the storm is expected to cause some damage as well, too. So let's take a look at a couple other images we have here. Here is the latest traffic cam image. This is a still picture, but it was taken just a few moments ago in the Naples area, and you can see when you are in this eye wall of this storm, not only do you have very heavy rain, but also very low visibility. If we happen to catch the eye of the storm on camera, you would actually see some relatively calm conditions. It's kind of an odd sensation to be in, despite all of the heavy wind and rain you saw just moments earlier. We are also closely monitoring power outages. That is obviously going to be a concern, not only directly where this eye comes ashore, but also in many other areas, because despite the fact that we're paying very close attention to the eye of the storm, we're also, of course, talking about a storm that is hundreds of miles wide. So the far-reaching effects of that are, again, impacting communities like Miami-Dade County, where a very large percentage of the customers here being serviced by Florida Power and Light are without electricity at this hour. And this is the same, of course, as you make your way towards the center of that storm. We're seeing almost all the customers without power, and we'll expect to see these numbers grow and migrate northward as the storm's intense eye begins to move up the coast. We actually have an experimental electricity outage map. It is a forecast, if you will, of where we are expecting folks to lose power. I'm going to make a quick adjustment to the sizing here on the screen and go ahead and put it up on the screen for you. It's from Ohio State University, Texas A&M University, and University of Michigan, trying to predict where the storm's wrath will cause power lines to come down and for folks to lose power. And in those red areas there, that's 50% or more customers expected to be without power, all the way from Miami through Tampa up towards the likes of Jacksonville and Tallahassee. So we will keep, of course, a close eye on that. So where does the storm go from here? Let's go on over to the GFS model as seen on tropicaltidbits.com, and you can see this is essentially where we are right now. But if I go ahead and I put this into motion, well, you can see that over the course of the next few hours, the circulation that is Irma, still a Category 2 hurricane, will move up towards Tampa. Whether or not the eye stays on shore or goes back over water, that's a little hard to say, and that will make or break a little bit of the strength prediction of this storm, if you will. If the eye goes back over water or so, it might have the ability to maintain strength or strengthen a little. But if we can keep that eye on shore, it will help not strengthen the storm and help to break it down a little bit here. But even looking at this area of circulation, possibly a Category 1 or tropical storm as it makes its way towards Tallahassee before swinging a little bit westward towards Georgia, towards Alabama. But you can still see the outer reaches of that storm back into areas like South Carolina, where we could see some significant rain and wind at times. Not hurricane storm force by any means, but we do have some advisories out for that area too. So let's talk a little bit about those, because when you look at this here, you can kind of see that by the time we get into tomorrow morning and through about Tuesday or so, we could be looking at some windy conditions and even some coastal storm surge across portions of the Georgia and South Carolina coast. So on the 5 o'clock advisory cone here, where we're watching the track of the center of Irma, you can actually see all those areas outlined in red there. Those are hurricane warnings. And then along the Georgia and South Carolina coast, those are tropical storm warnings, because we are anticipating those windy conditions to cause a bit of storm surge, maybe about 3 feet or so, in the likes of Charleston, Hilton Head, back down into Savannah. So if you're immediately along the shore or any of those barrier beaches there, it's likely that you might be be seeing that by the time we go into Monday and Tuesday. Let's walk through those a little bit more because not only do we have a concern along the coast, but we also have some bulletins out from the National Weather Service offices, multiple offices here, of course, all working in conjunction as this storm makes its way up and down the coast. So I'm going to make a slight adjustment to the sizing and scaling of this image as I put it up on your screen there. Sorry for the delay. We'll get that refreshed because what I want to show you is a kind of a mixture of all of the warnings that are out right now up and down, not only Florida, but also in the southeast. So, of course, we have those hurricane warnings that we've been talking about. We have those extreme wind warnings in Florida where the most intense winds, 110, 115 miles per hour or so, are being observed. We have those tropical storm warnings extending up again along Georgia into South Carolina and up to as far north as Charleston. But if you're watching us at this 5 o'clock update from further inland, maybe in upstate South Carolina, we have now upgraded our high wind watch to high wind warnings. So as we go into Monday and into the early parts of Tuesday, we can expect to see some significant, possibly damaging winds from the outer reaches of Irma. Again, that eye of Irma will be in southern or central Georgia, making its way towards Alabama, but it'll be extending out as far to the east as the Charlotte metro area and into the western North Carolina mountains, which is why we do have a number of watches and warnings out again for not only wind, but also a flash flood watch now up for some of these hilly terrains in western North Carolina because of the terrain there and the amount of rain that we're expecting to see. As that comes on down, we could see some localized areas of flash flooding. So we have this flash flood watch up in the mountains, and I believe, although I'm blocked from mousing it over, there we go, flash flood watch as well extends up not only down into portions of central South Carolina, the Columbia area, Charleston, and the like, but also kind of right here flirting with that Georgia border. You can kind of see these if you're watching us from the northeast Georgia mountains as well, too. And again, this red right here, this is all of the area that encompasses the tropical storm warning. So we're talking about the Atlanta metro area and towards the Birmingham and Montgomery metro areas, even Columbus, Macon, Albany as well, too. We'll probably see the likes of this. But the hurricane warning has now been pushed as far north as Albany, Georgia, as we expect to see Irma over the course of the next 12 hours or so begin to make her way that way. Let me go ahead and pop the forecast cone up for you. We'll take some of your questions and comments and concerns in just a moment as you're joining us here. We'll go to the Tampa radar real fast because I want to show you some of those tornado warnings that are coming up on screen too. But I also want to elaborate a little bit more on what I was just talking about, some of those Carolina impacts in particular. And we do have some new information out from the National Weather Service offices in our neck of the woods. So let me go ahead and switch on over to that because they have put together some great information for us. And I know a lot of you have been asking what can we expect here in the Carolinas. It is not a situation, thankfully, like we feared on Wednesday or Thursday, where we thought we were going to get a little bit more of the brunt of this storm. But we are going to see still some rain and some wind, and so we want to make sure you are kept up to date and abreast of that situation. So here's some of the latest information that we received from the National Weather Service office in Columbia, and I'm going to see real fast. Bear with me. Let me drop the graphics that I have up on the screen so that you can see exactly what is written here. So the hazards, wind, flooding, rain, and even that tornado threat. So I was just showing you that tornado threat in Florida. Any place that is to the top right on a north-oriented map or that northeast quadrant of the storm, northeast of the eye, really is in that tornado threat. So for portions of upstate South Carolina, the Midlands, and further south, and then extending closer to the eye, we are watching for the threat of some isolated tornadoes and the impacts mainly there. Damage, of course, to mobile homes, roofs, and vehicles where some of those spin-ups occur. The best chance to see those has shifted to south of Interstate 26. The chance is still pretty much everywhere Monday and Monday evening if you were any place essentially from Charlotte to the west and to the south, but the best chance of that probably south of Interstate 26 and the closer you get to the eye. Of course, we will still continue to watch for isolated flash flooding and windy conditions Monday and Monday night as well, too. Current forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, the strongest of the winds expected, again, south of Interstate 26, essentially in that Central Valley area there. Let's take a look at some of the timings in a visual perspective. We can see some elevated risks of the wind, the inland flooding, and the tornadoes as we look ahead to Monday and Tuesday or so. I'm going to go ahead and browse through a couple of these slides here real fast, if you don't mind, just to kind of break down a little bit more on what we're talking about. So the timing of the winds and the confidence is fairly moderate that we will see some of those tropical storm-like winds, and that's why we have that high wind warning issued for a lot of those folks who are in that Columbia area, in that upstate South Carolina area, and so we will keep a close eye on that. Here's a better look at that tornado threat. This was that graphic I wanted to scroll on down to, and you can see that for Monday and Monday night, the Storm Prediction Center has already issued that slight advisory. We talk about these every time we think there's going to be a severe weather outbreak, and remember, this is a scale of essentially 0 to 5, so we have a slight outbreak, which is about a 2 out of 5 or so. The closer you are to the coast, a little bit further south, a little bit closer to the center of that circulation, we can really expect to see that, but we will keep a close eye on that. So that was kind of a breakdown of what we can expect across much of the Columbia metro area, but let's look at the briefing that came out this morning as well from the National Weather in Greenville, Spartanburg. So this is for not only upstate South Carolina, but also includes the western North Carolina mountains and even as far east as the Charlotte metro. That's kind of the outer reaches. Oh, I'm sorry. The one we have up on the screen right now is Charleston. So this is the Charleston National Weather Service office. So this is actually going to be closer to the coast, where we can see some more of those impacts of what will probably by then hurricane or tropical storm Irma. But we are looking again for wind. There's that storm surge we talked about Monday night, with the worst occurring between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Monday, anywhere along the coast in southeast South Carolina and southeast Georgia. We'll watch for beach erosion and potential for overwash and drainage of homes that are near the shoreline and in low-lying vulnerable areas. So we will watch for that flash flooding possibility on top of that too, and that could extend further off the shore into any of those low-lying areas. So if you live near a stream or a river or anywhere where water tends to pool, especially in southeast Georgia, we'll watch for that through this evening into Monday evening. We have that tornado threat about 4 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Monday, so that's a pretty wide area. So as you head out the door on Monday, it may be worth taking, if you've got a mobile weather radio with you. You can also download our Stormwatch Plus app and stay up to date on tornado warnings that may be impacting you as you are out and about on Monday. If you are heading out to the water, very dangerous conditions. May not be a good day to be out on the water at all on Monday. So whether you're out on a boat or beach and surf, you can see that through Tuesday, you can expect some very rough conditions. Let me go ahead and slide through the rest of their briefing here, show you again. Here's a visual impact graphic breakdown, some of those things we were just talking about, but in a nice, easy way to comprehend, you can see that we are going to watch for some significant flooding along that Georgia and South Carolina coast, and so we will watch for those. Again, these are conditions that really begin to ramp up for us here in the Carolinas starting on Monday and heading into early Tuesday before this thing really begins to wind down. If you are used to looking at flooding predictions or storm surge indications, you can kind of take a look at it right here on this map. From Monday to Tuesday, you can kind of see exactly as the tide comes up and the winds shift as well between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. tomorrow. This is Monday's perspective. We can watch for some of that biggest inundation of that storm surge threat. This is a breakdown for Charleston. We're downtown Charleston, right on the water there, very vulnerable as well, so we will keep a close eye on that. And if you're watching from just across the border into Georgia, about the same time frame as well, with flooding and road business of impacts. Route 80 likely to have water up 4 to 5 feet deep, so we will keep a close eye on that. There's a look at those storm surge threats that we've been talking about, and I think now we're probably getting into a breakdown of a lot of the same things we've been talking about, but I know we've alluded to the wind threat, and along the coast here, we can expect winds 40 to 50 miles per hour with gusts as high as 55 to 65. If you're a little bit further north towards the Charlotte area, let's take just a few miles per hour rather off of that wind threat, but it's still, we're going to see some gusty conditions Monday into Tuesday. The timing for the shoreline here in South Carolina is late tonight into Monday evening, with the greatest impact being trees and power lines down and maybe some damage to some weak structures on top of that tornado threat we've been talking about. So these are all things that hopefully you are aware of. We've been talking about the extended reach of this storm, even if we don't get a direct impact from Hurricane Irma or Tropical Storm Irma. We will be keeping a close eye on the impact of that. And if you are just tuning in as we go ahead and work our way through that breakdown, I'll go ahead and pop up on the screen for you one more time the latest warnings that are out from the National Weather Service that extend through the period of Tuesday. We have that hurricane warning for Florida, as far north into Georgia as Albany, but in the Carolinas, this kind of really breaks down all those significant threats that we could be seeing. So we are all but certain that we're going to have a storm threat, a surge threat with some flooding along the coast from Charleston southward. So watch for that. On top of that, we have that high wind warning that pretty much stretches from Interstate 26. So as you come out of Charleston into Columbia and make your way into upstate South Carolina, we have that high wind warning that extends through Tuesday morning. But while that is where the most significant winds in our neck of the woods are expected to be, don't be surprised if we see some gustier conditions as well as far to the east as Interstate 77 in the Charlotte area, also extending from about Fort Bragg or so, Fayetteville towards Wilmington. We have a wind advisory, just kind of a heads up that we could be seeing some of those gustier conditions. But as I widen this out, you can really see where the bulk of those warnings are for tropical storm force conditions and hurricane-like conditions that will extend into portions of the Atlanta metro area, Birmingham, Montgomery, and the panhandle of Florida. Because once again, and here is our recap for you, we have that latest 5 o'clock advisory out from the Hurricane Center. You can see that as Hurricane Irma makes her way now past Naples towards Tampa Bay and towards Tallahassee, it'll make a slight swing to the west, swing to the left there as a tropical storm as we look ahead to Tuesday before really beginning to break apart and get absorbed into the rest of our jet stream as we look ahead to Monday and Thursday. So stay with us, and we thank you for staying with us here on the streaming networks of the Carolina Weather Group and CarolinaWeatherGroup.com, and we will keep you updated on this situation. Our thoughts are with everyone who might be in the direct impact of this storm, but the good news is that as of about 5 o'clock, as the eye makes its way onto the mainland of Florida, down in the Naples area, it has downgraded to about a Category 2, but a very powerful Category 2 after coming ashore as probably what will be documented as a Category 3, maybe 4 as they look over the data. Came ashore at about 3 o'clock this afternoon on this Sunday, September 10th, 2017. For now, I'm James Brierton. I will leave you with a look at the latest satellite imagery of the storm, once again, as it makes its way north into Florida.